Welcome to part 2 of my 3-part series on intermodal railway transport. In this episode, I'll discuss changes and growth in the industry. At the end of part 1, I touched very briefly on double stack containers as I showed a picture of one, and I will pick it up from there. With the railways looking for more efficient ways to move containers in higher volumes across the continent, one of the ideas they came up with was stacking or double stacking the containers. In order to do that, they did have some obstacles to overcome. Double stacking a container on a normal flat car, you're going to have height clearances with bridges and things. So what they came up with was this concept of a well car, where the bottom container is sunk, as in the picture here, it looks like it could be up to half down below the side of the car, so it sits low to the ground. And then the second container stacks on top, but the clearance is much lower. They still had to adjust some bridges and infrastructure, but it was a lot easier to deal with than just trying to stack two containers on a standard flat car. Here's another example of a well car. This is a model, once again showing on my train layout, of a double stack container car. With regards to it's a well car, as you saw in the photo as well. And it maybe gives you a little more of a close-up shot of you can see the lower container is like I said, it's about probably more of a third in, sunk down in, but it's very low to the ground. The clearance on these is very low, and then you've got the second container on top. And here, actually, I'll show a quick video. This is just watch my clumsy fingers here, but I'm just unstacking the train, and then basically showing the well car and how you can see how close it is to the ground. Just a quick illustration there. Now, the other interesting thing with the double stacks, I mean, obviously one of the huge advantages is the fact that you're able to almost double your capacity on a train. So a single stack or a trailer on flat car, you have one load per car. This is in fact doubles your capacity virtually. And as the industry grew, so the containers. So import wise, they grew as well. You had your 20s and 40s. Here in this picture, you can see also is very creative, is they've got a 40-foot and they've got a 45-foot ocean container stacked on top. So you can actually do that provided the well car has the capacity to and the length to accommodate the longer container. So you have clearance between the cars. On top of that, you also had in the domestic industry, as today commonplace, 53-foot containers very common, and even now you're starting to see some 60-foot containers in the industry as well. As the technology and the industry evolved, and railways looked to be more efficient, especially in the 90s and or late 80s, 90s, and into the 21st century. They're really looking for better economies of scale. So one of the things they did is they started running dedicated intermodal trains, especially the container stack trains. And on top of that, they needed better, more efficient ways to load unload. So they designed and built intermodal terminals. And those terminals are focused on solely on handling, loading, and unloading intermodal trains. Here's a picture of the CP terminal. And you can see the large cranes, mobile cranes that they were able to use to load and unload the containers. So they can do a lot, very high capacity. A lot of cases, the trucks will pull up right beside the cars where possible, and they can load unload. And then if you're ever in a major port in Canada, such as Halifax or Vancouver, you can see it's a very similar style. They have large cranes for loading and unloading the ships, and either onto trains or trucks. Now, on some smaller terminals, such as this photograph, you can see that they use a tractor that can lift and put the containers on the flat cars. So it may not be as large a facility, but they still yet it will be a intermodal terminal. So as a result of that, what you saw was as the terminals grew, you saw the ramps I referred to earlier virtually disappear, and the railways were no longer interested in handling one or two cars or such of the trailer on flat car. The circus loading, they were more interested in doing the crane loading style and handling a much higher volume and capacity of container and trailer. Just with regards to the growth of intermodal transport, in Canada, for instance, in the US, in the 1950s, it was virtually a very small percentage of the total revenue of the railways. We're talking 1 or 2%. So very small, but it was a growing industry. And basically, the railways were looking for a way to compete with the transport trucks, which are growing ever faster, especially as the highway systems in Canada and the US grew. They were able to compete more with the railways and against the what was then mostly boxcar traffic. And the other thing moving forward is what happened was the growth. It grew, I don't know if exponentially, but as of 2020 of last year in Canada, intermodal transport was 21% of total revenue of the Canadian railways. These would be CNCP, mainly the class ones. And in the US, that number was 25%. So very significant number, and so you can see how intermodal has really come into its own. And it also, in a lot of cases, is replaced. You don't see box cars as often as you used to. They are still used. They're still, still fairly common, but they're no longer the number one rail car on the railways. More so, it's you see covered hoppers and tank cars. But the from the intermodal side, it's basically replaced a lot of the commodities that were hauled in box cars are now hauled in containers. That concludes part two on my three-part series on intermodal transport by rail. In part three, I will discuss alternative intermodal services as well as where intermodal transportation by rail is at today and some differences between intermodal transportation in Canada and the United States. Thank you for watching another video in my Railways in a Nutshell series focused on educating people on railway subject matter. If you like this video and are interested in seeing more of this type of content, please subscribe to my channel. Also, if you have suggestions for other railway topics, feel free to send them to me.